What's up, everyone? And today I'm bringing you a deck profile on my Adamancipators. Now, Adamancipators is a very good deck that excavates for rocks. You're digging for rocks, more or less. In my opinion, this deck is just being very heavily slept on. While it does have potential to misfire off of the rocks, this deck is just still insanely powerful. And basically, if this deck goes uninterrupted, you have an 85% chance of ending on a board of a 2 negate Borrowed Savage Dragon, and at least a 3 negate Apollousa, not including whatever hand traps you have in your hand or on the field, or if you can get your Apollousa up to 4 materials, or even have a Dragite on the field as well. And yes, I did in practice, in the 7 hands I practiced, 6 of them I got to the board you want, the end board, I guess. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. First, I run the 3 Adamancipator Researcher. Now, all of the Adamancipators, at least the tuners, have an effect to where you can activate the top 5 cards of your deck and add 1 non-tuner level 4 lower rock type monster and special summon it. And the cool thing is, all of the Adamancipator tuners do that. So Seeker and Analyzer also have that effect. And the cool thing is that they can all be special summoned. However, the special summoning is restricted depending on which Adamancipator you have. Researcher, if you control a rock, you special summon it. Seeker, if you control Adamancipator, and Analyzer, if only your opponent controls a monster. So Researcher is the strongest of the 3 mainly just because it's the easiest to get out. And obviously, with them being allowing you to special summon a rock monster, obviously, as I said before, it can potentially misfire. And if, let's say, for example, you open Analyzer and you don't have Seeker or Researcher, and you misfire off of Analyzer, it's going to be very rough. In fact, out of the 6 of the 7 hands, one of those hands was exactly that scenario, and I wasn't really able to do much. I maybe had a hand trap or 2, but that was really it. Also run the 1 Adamancipator Crystal Dragite. Now, I only run Dragite mainly because it's whenever it's special summoned off of the effect of an Adamancipator card, you can draw 1 card. You can also use it as a fodder for Small World. Next, I run the 3 Praying Kids Roxy's, as well as the 1 Dropsies. Now, Roxy's is a very important part of this strategy, although I don't see some people running it, which is kind of confusing. Because since Roxy's is, well, a rock, you can summon it off of the Adamancipators. And the really cool thing with Roxy's is it basically allows you to obviously draw 1 off of the effect of Roxy's. I mean, fix your hand a little bit. You can also gain 1,000 life points, which can help when going into time, which actually did come up once in a tournament where I was using Prank Kids, and I won that game because I had this combo and I was able to get Dropsies onto the field, send it for a doodle-doo, and gain 1,000 life points to win. And it also helps get a link into the graveyard to help set up your Borrowed Savage Dragon, so it just gets you a whole lot of advantage off of running this small Prank Kids engine. Now, you could run Lampsies or Fansies or some other kind of card, but outside of the 3 Roxy's, it doesn't really matter too much. You can run Lampsies if you want to run that over Dropsies, but Dropsies is pretty much, I feel like, the better pick because you can actually use it in tandem with a card like Dragite. Because Dragite's effect only activates or can only be used when there is a water monster in the graveyard, aka Dropsies. Next, I run 3 Quackimero Supplier. Now, Supplier, if a face-up rock monster you control is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if it's special summoned, you can add 1 Iron Core of Quackimero or 1 card that specifically lists Iron Core of Quackimero in its text, aka 1 of the 3 copies of Quackimero Guardian that I run. Now, Guardian is good, or not Guardian, Supplier is good if you have it in your hand, both like to open it out, because you can special summon if a rock monster is sent to the graveyard, which is pretty much going to always be the case. And Guardian is just, well, a negate. When it's on the field, you contribute it to negate the activation of a monster's effect. And a lot of times you can get this out pretty early off of the effect of an Adamancipator's effect to basically counter any sort of hand traps your opponent may have. Let's say they have a Nibiru in hand. Guardian, tribute, boom, Nibiru is negated. I also run the 2 Doki Doki. I originally considered taking this one out, but it actually proved to be very useful. It can really help with those dead cards in your hand. For example, let's say you have a hand that has Roxy's, Guardian, and a Supplier. you're not really going to do much with that. At least with Doki Doki, you probably send one of them to the graveyard to special summon an analyzer, which you could then use to activate. So it really allows you to kind of help stand in off of a not too desirable hand. As for the hand traps, I run 3 Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler, I feel, is becoming more of the, I guess, like main hand trap of the format, although the format's kind of going to be shifting heavily because this is being recorded shortly after the January 2022 ban list, and man, that was a ban list. I thought about putting Destrudo in, but there wasn't really much advantage to it. If you want to put it in, it's not a bad option, but Effect Veiler I just like better, more so because it helps with one of the more, or at least a couple more, the more problematic cards in Artifact Dagda and Predaplant Vertaniconda. Since Ash Blossom doesn't work on Vertaniconda or Artifact Dagda, or at least I don't think it works on Dagda. However, Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence do, so that's why I'd rather run Effect Veiler over the Ash Blossom. But I still run one Ash Blossom Joy Spring, kind of for also a cross-out target. I also run the 2 Nibiru. Nibiru just being an all-around good hand trap, basically just destroying boards. Although, now that we got Raigeki at 3, that may not be... You could probably also run that over Nibiru. But the advantage of running Nibiru, first off, it puts itself onto the field, so you already have a 3k attack monster. And secondly, it's a rock. You can use it off of Doki Doki, you can summon it off of the Risen Raptite. There's definitely a lot of uses that you can use for Nibiru over a card like Raigeki. Moving on to the spells. I play 3 Small World. Small World's pretty good, considering you have to run a lot of rocks for this deck to really run, because the whole excavating rocks and special summoning is kind of like the gimmick of this deck and what makes it work so good. And unfortunately, on the downside, that means that your hand can sometimes be kind of cloggy of just extra rock monsters that you're not really going to do anything with. However, you can use Smart World to get rid of them and to get maybe one of your tuners to special summon them. Like, for example, let's say you got a Nibiru, you could send Nibiru for the Dragite and then drag it into Researcher, for example. Well, I was talking about one of the other reasons why I run the Dragite, just for it to be a Small World target to kind of like bridge it up. I also run the 2 Pot of Avarice. Originally I was playing around with cards like Pot of Prosperity, but I really don't have the extra deck space for it. You could also run a card like Triple Tactics Talent, but I feel like Pot of Avarice is the better choice, mainly just because you build your graveyard pretty quickly, and definitely once you expend all your resources, it's definitely to hope you can get like maybe an Veiler or Imperm to kind of like help back up your board. I run the 1 Adamancipator Signs. Adamancipator Signs is a monster born for Adamancipators. Now, originally I was running this at 3, but I just felt like I wasn't getting the hands that was desirable, and since it's just an extender, I felt like I could cut it down, and the deck's been performing a little bit better by doing that. I was able to throw in a couple more hand traps to kind of like help offset it. And Signs has a really cool additional effect to take 1 level 4 lower rock monster from your deck and place it on top of your deck. Now, Signs is really powerful because first, it just special summons a rock monster. It doesn't have to be Adamancipator. And the cool thing about it is it is not once per turn, so that's the reason why I had it at 3. Next, I run 2 Dark Ruler No More. Lately, I've just been maining 2 copies of Dark Ruler No More because of my ability to lose dice rolls often, which is kind of annoying. But if you happen to go a second, it's obviously nice to have a Dark Ruler already in hand to just basically destroy your opponent's board. I run the 1 Called by the Grave and the 1 Crossout Designator. Now, I would side the other 2 Crossout Designators just as backup, but at least have 1. That way I have 2 potential outs to hand traps. Moving on to the traps, I don't have a lot. I just have my 3 Infinite Impermanence. Moving on to the extra deck, I run 2 Adamancipator Risen Raptite. Raptite is really cool because it's usually going to be the first synchro you go into. Raptite, you can activate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, special summon 1 rock type monster in defense position. Now, the cool thing about Raptite, it doesn't have the same restrictions as the tuner Adamancipators, to where that they can only summon a level 4 lower non-tuner. This can summon a level 4 higher tuner. So you can basically summon Nibiru or Researcher off of it. It has a really cool kind of Called by the Grave like effect. During your opponent's turn, if a wind monster is in your graveyard, quick effect, you target one card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it. Now, that doesn't really come up really quite at all, because we don't really have any winds. If you happen to have another Reptite in the graveyard, then that would do it, but that rarely comes up. You mainly want it for the effect to excavate. Also run the one Leonite. Leonite I didn't really go into all that often because Leonite only adds rather than specials like the other Adamancipators. But there are situations where that would definitely be the good option. For example, like if you haven't gotten Researcher, you can go try to see if you can get a Researcher or a Seeker if you haven't used that one's effects either. I also run the one Risen Dragite. Risen Dragite during your main phase, you can activate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, you return a card your opponent controls up to the number of activated rock type monsters. So it's basically to clear your board and help you attack for game, and it has a cool additional effect to negate a spell or trap card effect when one is activated. So I definitely say it's the strongest of the Adamancipator Synchro monsters, but Reptite's the most versatile. Also run the one Borlo Savage Dragon. Go into it almost all the time. It's very easy to go into. All you have to do is have a Reptite and Researcher or Seeker, which is very easy to do. Also run the one Gallant Granite. Gallant Granite doesn't come up as much now since Block Dragon is now banned, but there are still going to be scenarios where you are going to want to have it in case you want to add a Guardian to your hand to protect another Guardian from destroying itself. You can also add the Seeker or Researcher or even a Nibiru if you want to, because this says target one or special summon one rock monster. Add one rock monster from your deck to your hand. You can also special summon a rock monster from your hand and face down defense position, but what's really the point of that? I also run the one Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is just good against those very grave reliant decks, so definitely an option you want to have. I also run the one Zeus because it's Zeus. Need I explain? I run a Prankids Meow Meow Mew and a Prankids Doodle Doo for my Prankids engine. Now, I don't really run Doodle Doo for its effect because I don't run any Prankids spell and traps, so it's mainly just to get the whole Prankids combo off to get a little bit more advantage and gain some life points in time. I run the one Crystron Halky Fibrax. Fibrax, when it's summoned, you can summon another. When it's link summoned, you can summon one level 3 or lower tuner from your deck, which is really good. I run the one IP Masquerena. Rarely do I summon it for its effect. More so, it's its effect to if I don't have the Prank Hits option live, I can use the Hulk as the fodder for the Borlo Savage Dragon or IP Masquerena, and basically just get one of them into the grave so I can use my Borlo Savage Dragon. I also run one Blackluster Soldier Chaos. It comes up occasionally. It's more or less just a very solid Link 3 that we can go into. If you want to swap it out for Nightmare Unicorn, that's also an option. Also run the one Apollosa, Bow of the Goddess, and the one Access Code Talker to finish up games. So what do you think about that? I think Amex is pretty cool. It's definitely a very powerful deck and a deck you're really going to want to keep an eye on. So I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye.